Hey everybody, it's Mark again. I hope everybody's enjoying my videos. I hope that you're learning things. That's what my YouTube channel is all for the most part. I do show you stuff I'm proud of or stuff I enjoy doing, but as far as clock repair, my YouTube channel is to show you how to repair your own clocks. And I get people all the time that contact me, and I video chat with people or answer them through messages or send them videos on my channel, and I'm constantly helping people out. But this video is going to be a little controversial to a lot of clock repair, master clock repair people out there. But just bear with me, and I'll explain everything you need to know in this video. And I hope that I hope the video helps you out. This video, by the way, has got to do with bushing wear. And there are some people who are basically incapable of taking a movement apart because they shake too much. I have a friend, especially with German clock movements, antique kitchen clock movements, they're a lot bigger. Cuckoo clock movements are smaller. He shakes too much, so he can't put the move. I've watched him. He can't put the movement together because of his epileptic issues. And there are other people out there who are just like him, who are physically incapable of putting a movement back together, and that's why they don't take them apart. Well, this video is going to be designed for those people and to help them out. And so let's get right into it. Grab something to eat, grab something to drink, grab a cigarette if you choose to do so, and let's learn things. And please leave comments on my video. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. And this video is going to help out a lot of people. Wasn't working, now it's working. So again, I was at my mom and dad's house. My mom passed away in 2018. They paid this local guy to repair a clock. I broke my ribs coming out of the bathtub. When my back hurts, I take hot baths. I took a hot bath. I was coming out of the bathtub. My back cringed on me, made me slip and fall out of the bathtub. I hit my head on the toilet. I broke 2 ribs. I fractured one I broke completely in 2. I stayed at my mom and dad's for over a month, healing. And while I was there, my dad was winding up this 31-day clock that my stepbrother gave them for Christmas, or I don't know, long 20 plus years ago, 30 years ago. And he was winding up this clock every day. And I'm like, Dad, you shouldn't have to wind that clock every day. It's a 31-day clock. Well, we paid this guy, and, you know, they paid him decent money to service his clock. So while I was there, I took that clock apart and looked at it. First, the suspension spring was broken. It had 2 metal parts coming down. One metal part was broke, so it was only working on one metal part for the suspension spring. And so I replaced the suspension spring, and one of the wheels, the bushing, the pivot hole was oblong. And I used a center punch in my dad's shop, and I punched around the holes to close up that oblong hole. The clock worked. They only had to wind it once a month. I didn't feel like taking the movement apart. I broke my ribs. I didn't feel like doing a lot. So I closed up the hole using a center punch, just like I explained to you with this clock, and the clock works. And the clock still works today, and that was back in 2016 that I worked on that clock. And so, in a pinch, why not? You know, instead of taking this movement all back apart, I should have caught it in the first place, but I didn't. But anyway, some people, again, are going to frown on what I just showed you, what I just told you, but doesn't it make sense? You know, if it's going to work, doesn't it make sense to do it the easiest way possible? It was one bushing. Now, my Alexander Bleak clock, somebody did several bushings that way, and you can't purchase regular bushings to put in the movement because there's not a lot of space from how the movement was made. So I have to live with it. But in a pinch, I don't see anything wrong with doing what I just did. Their clock, which is a 30-day spring-driven movement, still runs. And that was almost 10 years ago. So what is wrong with doing what I just told you? Again, they make a tool for it. You can use the center punch. I didn't want to take the movement out, so I thought I'd try that spring-loaded punch, and I held the case up front. I did everything on my stand. I held the case in place. I put the center punch in there. I closed up the hole, and now the clock works. Currently it's in warning, so that's why it's not working right now. It works, so why not? Give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments. Do what you have to do to get a clock running, I guess is what I'm saying. If you only have one bushing to repair, what's wrong with it? Yeah, I know I'm going to get a lot of slack from this video, but that's okay. Here is a set, punch set hole closing. 7 spring-loaded punches reduces the diameter and hardens bushing holes. $70 a set. But they make a set, or at least they used to make a set, they use a hammer. It's like a punch, but you use a hammer. So for those folks who say, Mark, this is not allowed, why do they sell a tool to do it with? Vintage Clockmaker's hole closing punch set, 7 punches, wooden box. You see that? In this kit right here, which is a staking set, there's one tool in this set that could be used. if you look at this really closely, there's there's 3 points on this thing. You put it around the pivot, you take a hammer, punch it, and it's going to close the whole diameter. That's what they make, folks. So don't tell me that you're not supposed to do this. Yes, it doesn't look professional, but they made tools for it. So you can do it. It doesn't look very professional, but instead of taking the movement apart, when you're using the spring loaded set, you don't have to take the movement apart. You just got to be careful what you're doing. I take that back. If you close it up too much, you might have to take the movement apart to remount the hole. But with the spring loaded set, if you're careful, you don't have to take the movement apart. And why take the movement apart if you just need to repair one hole? Like I said, I did this in 2016 for my parents' clock. It still runs today. Here's another set of hole closing punches, $52. And there's another set and another set. You can find them all over the place on eBay. And I know they make a set that has like 4 or 5 sharp pieces in a center, like the one I showed you for my staking set. It's just been a long time since I've seen it, but I know they make a set like it that you can use to close up the hole. Time Savers, I believe, used to sell it, but you can't quote me on that. This is all leather punching stuff here. But those sets I showed you are for clocks. Hole closing punches. Do you hear me? Hole closing punches. Now I staked the backside of the movement bushing, and it was working fine, but I'm going to have to stake the front side too, because I'm sure it is got play in it also. Every once in a while, the arms catch, and it's because the pivot in the front is going up into the oblonged area, and when that happens, like there, if you pull on the chain, it'll go back to where it needs to go. So I'm going to try to stake it. I think I could do it by taking the dial plate off. And unfortunately, I was wrong, because the pivot that I need to stake is right back here. And there's not a big enough hole in this dial plate, so I'm going to have to take the movement out to do it. Now, looking underneath my microscope, look at this right here. And I didn't catch it. When I'm doing these videos, I'm thinking about what I'm going to tell y'all. And so sometimes I make mistakes and I don't check for what I need to be checking. But this is the opposite side of that pivot. You see how it goes from left to right? You should be able to see that. if I could keep my hand focused. It's going from left to right. So I'm going to take my spring-loaded punch, and I'm going to close up that hole. But I have to figure out which side I want to close up. And you can see there, when it's working properly, it goes down this way. So I need to stake up in this area. To close up that hole. And now you can see that I took a punch to this area right here. And when I work the wheel back and forth, it no longer goes from side to side. So it closed up the hole. I put 2 marks in it. One here and one here. And so I might have put 3 in it. But anyway, it no longer goes back and forth. And so now I'm going to put it on my test stand after I put all the chains on it. You know, I put this movement on my test stand before and it was working, but by the time you add the bellows and everything else, you had to put a little extra weight on it. And I knew right away that I had bushing wear. Because this is a count wheel movement, the plates are thicker than a regular 25 rack and stale movement. And because the plates are thicker, thicker plates, less lenient on bushing wear. .8. Sorry. 2.08, where a regular 25 movement is like 1.1 millimeters. Regular 25 movement. .37. Sorry, 1.25. It depends on, again, it depends on how much pressure you use on this. Regular 25 movements are lenient on bushing wear. Count wheel movements are not as lenient on bushing wear. And I didn't catch it. And so I'm showing y'all. Again, not everybody has got the capability of taking movements apart. Some people are physically incapable of taking the movements apart because they shake too much. And therefore, they've got clocks that don't work because of bushing issues. Is it unprofessional? It's a judgment call right there. In my opinion, no, it's not. Not for 1 or 2 bushings. When you go to replace this bushing, or the person down the road goes to replace that bushing, you can easily replace that bushing because there's a lot of plate that you could bore out. With my Alexander Fleet movement, they staked the bushings, and you can't easily replace the bushing because there's not enough plate left. And so, because the way they staked the bushings to close up the gap. And so, why do they make the tools? And they've been making these tools forever. This is not a brand new set. This is called a watch and clock staking set. And I showed you that they have these pieces right here that are designed for exactly what I showed you, except for this. You have to take the movements completely apart to do that, because if I was to take a hammer and pound on this, it's going to bend these plates. You're going to screw something up. But with the spring-loaded system, you're not screwing it up. If you don't do it right, you might have to take the plate apart to bore out the hole, because you kept on staking it and kept on staking it and kept on staking it, and it closed up the hole so much that the pivot is now rubbing against metal, and it's not supposed to do that. So in my table, you see the divot? So do it on a movement that you could care less about and practice before you do it on a movement that you do care about. Because if you get too close, you're going to have to remount the hole. Let me put the chains on this thing, put it on my test stand, test it out, and then I'll put it back in the case. Now, in this particular movement, there's two different songs, and the music plays on both the hour and the half hour. I got the post in front of the movement, because if not, the guy comes back and hit the blades and it won't play the music. Of course, I don't have the music hooked up to it. Here goes the hour. Music went into warning. It's cuckooing. It's cuckooing properly. It shuts. Now the music is playing. So that part is working fine. But like I said, when you add the bellows, you got more stuff that it's doing. And so it wasn't working before. And that's because the bushing holes were oblonged on the second wheel on the strike side. So I get the pendulum off, and we're going to see whether or not this works. And you saw how it was cuckooing before. There was times I had to pull on the weights, and that's because these count wheel movements are thicker plate movements, so you can't really have any bushing wear. And so you can use, and again, if you use these staking sets, you have to take the movement apart, because you're going to have to hammer on the movement to to bring the pivot back where it needs to be to close up the hole. And there's tools that you can purchase today to do those. But in this case, I tried the spring-loaded punch. That way I didn't have to take the movement apart, and you seen it worked. I dropped the movement on the floor while I was video chatting with somebody, and there it went. As you can see, I didn't have to pull on the weights or nothing. So again, they made these tools to do this. It is frowned upon in the clock repair world, but it's your clock, it's your movement. We don't know your capabilities. This is for those people who are uncomfortable with taking a movement apart, but they want their clock fixed, or they can't physically take a movement apart because they shake too much, or they can't see that well. Again, it's your clock, it's your movement. They were designed to do that. Those tools were designed to do that. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people who are going to argue with me on this video, but it is what it is. It won't be the first time that somebody complained about my videos. But anyway, I hope this video has helped. I prefer that you take the movement apart and put proper bushings in if you're physically capable of doing it. But in this case, I didn't feel like taking the movement apart when I knew I could close up that bushing. And again, you can't really tell it. You can't see it because the second wheel was behind this count wheel. And so, again, my mom and dad's clock, they paid somebody professionally to have this clock serviced. It was while I was working 7 days a week, away from my house, 12, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. I was working for both Hughes Internet and shoeing horses on the weekends. So I was working 7 days a week, and I was driving 200, 300 miles a day. So instead of bothering me, they paid a local guy to service their clock. And when I stayed with them after I broke my ribs in 2016, I watched my dad wind the clock up every 2 days. And I'm like, Dad, why are you doing that? Well, Mark, it won't run unless I wind it up. And again, come to find out, the suspension spring, and I'll go ahead and show you a suspension spring so you understand what I'm talking about. This is a suspension spring on a spring-driven clock, and some weight-driven clocks have them. They made different kinds. This particular kind has got two metal strips that is pressed between these two brass pieces, upper block, bottom block. One of their metal strips was broken, and that clock repair guy should have replaced the suspension spring. So my dad drove me out to my house. I got a suspension spring, went back to his house, put it on. Clock still wasn't working right. And when I took the movement out, I saw there was pivot wear on one of the bushings, and I didn't feel like doing it properly. So I took a center punch and went around the bushing to close up the pivot wear, and the clock worked. This clock still works. That was 10 years ago almost, after my mom and dad died, I gave the clock to my ex-wife. It still works, to my knowledge. So doing what I did will work until, at least until the clock needs to be serviced again, and it might work well beyond that. Cuckoo clocks are required to be serviced every 3 to 5 years. So in 3 to 5 years from now, if the thing needs a bushing, the new owner can determine whether or not it needs a bushing and put a bushing in. Anyway, I hope this video has helped you. Please leave me some comments, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. And may God bless each and every one of you.